Saba's stories. The Ebony Horse and the Daughter of the King of Saba, Part 3. In the previous part of the story, we saw that the three sages brought strange gifts to the king. The first sage made a peacock out of gold, the second sage made a silver trumpet, and the third sage brought a horse which he made out of ivory and ebony. In return for their valuable gifts, the king agreed that the sages would marry the king's daughters. It was the third sage's turn to test his gift. At this time, the king's son rode an ebony horse and flew in the sky and flew away from there. The king's son, whose name was Humban, reached the land of Saba and stopped at the top of a palace to rest. Ironically, there was the palace of the daughter of the king of Saba. Prince Humban saw the daughter of the king of Saba there and decided to marry her. But Shah Saba opposed this, so the prince rode away from there on his horse. A short time later, the prince set off again towards the land of Saba and discussed his decision with the king of Saba. This time, the king of Saba agreed that his daughter should marry Prince Humban. Therefore, in a small celebration, the two of them got married. The daughter of the king of Saba, together with Prince Humban, rode on a horse and returned to the land of Prince Humban. The king found out about this story. He decided to organize a big party. Everyone was doing the necessary preparations. One day Prince Humban decides to show his land to the daughter of the king of Saba. So they ride a horse and land in a garden near the palace. The girl sat on a marble chair and Prince Humban also went to pick fruits from the trees and bring them. When Prince Humban returned, he did not see the girl and the horse. Sage 3, who the king had opposed to marrying him and his daughter, now wanted to take revenge out of frustration and kidnapped the daughter of the king of Saba and the horse, and now the story continues. But how did Sage convince the king's daughter to go with him? When the girl was alone, Sage went near her and said,
"Prince Humban is far away from here." Because they were tired, they sat in one of the halls of the garden and told me to come and take you to them.
The girl said, "How do you know that you are telling the truth?" Sage said,
"You know that no one knows the secret of flying with this ebony horse. Prince Humban trusts me a lot. That's why he only taught me the secret of flying with this horse."
Then he got on the horse. The girl thought for a while and she also got on the horse. Sage shook the sign on the right side of the horse's neck. The horse got up and went into the air. When they were a little far from the city, the girl said, "Where are you taking me? You were supposed to take me to the prince." Sage laughed loudly and said,
"I hate that prince and his father. That's why I want to take you away from them, so that they will always be sad and regret the way they treated me."
Prince Saba said, "You must respect them, they are your masters." Sage said,
"I lied to you, they are not my masters. The prince sent me to take you to him. I made this plan to get you away from them."
The girl was very upset and said to herself, "I wish I didn't trust this man. I should have sat there until the prince came and took me away." The girl was crying and begging him to take her home. But it was no use anymore. They went and left. Little by little, they reached the green land. Sage, who was very tired from sitting on the horse, said to himself, "We are so far away that they cannot reach us. I better get some rest." After that, he landed the horse in the meadow. He fell asleep on the ground next to the horse. The girl was very upset. He was sitting in a corner and crying and raised his hands to the sky and said, "God, help me. God, only you can help me. Help me go back to the prince. Suddenly he saw some people in the distance. A thought came to his mind. He slowly moved away from Sage and went near them. It was the land of Rome, and that day the king of Rome and his entourage had come to the green field for a walk. When the girl saw them, she said, "Please save me from that evil person. He wants to kill me." The king got very angry and said,
"Take us to him immediately."
The girl went with them to Sage. When Sage saw them, he said that he had brought his daughter for a walk. The girl said, "He is lying. He stole me to get a lot of money from my family to bring me back to our home." The king understood from the clothes and jewelry that was with the girl and her behavior that she is a rich girl and cannot be a wise girl. That's why he ordered to put Sage in prison. He took the girl and the horse with him to the palace. Sage regretted what he had done and said to himself,
"I have annoyed everyone with this behavior. My misplaced pride and selfishness caused everyone to get into trouble. Now I understand why the king did not give me his daughter. He knew that if someone does not have good morals, he cannot live well."
The king's daughter was very sad and wished she could see Prince Humban again. But hear about Prince Humban's life and day, he searched a little in the city, but he could not find the girl. He knew very well that Sage would ride a horse so far from the city that no one could find them. So he decided to leave the city and look for the daughter of the king of Saba in different countries. He had promised the king of Saba to take good care of his daughter and not let her get hurt. That's why he decided to find her anyway and not let that wicked Sage bother him. He went from city to city looking for the king's daughter. He told others the addresses of the girl and the ebony horse and Sage. But no one knew about them. The prince was not disappointed and went from one city to another. He entered a caravanserai in a city. He wanted to rest a little. He sat alone in a corner. He raised his hands and said,
"God, help me to find the prince among all these cities and among all these people. If you help me, I will find him easily."
Some merchants were sitting near him and eating. Each of them told others about the cities they had gone to and the things they had seen. One of the merchants said that a strange thing happened in the city where I was. One day the king went for a walk to the green fields around the city. There he saw a man who had stolen a girl. Everyone says that it is not known how that girl and Sage brought their horse to this land. Now they put Sage in prison and took the girl to the palace. Upon hearing these words, the prince realized that his efforts had finally paid off and he had succeeded in obtaining a sign from the king's daughter. That's why he waited until the merchant was alone. He went to him and asked the name and address of that city. He couldn't sleep because of happiness that night. He wanted the sun to rise as soon as possible and go to that city. In the morning, he quickly moved towards the city that he had asked the merchant for its sign. The man rode his horse until night, until he finally reached that city. When he was about to pass through the city gate, the soldiers gathered around him. The prince asked worriedly,
"What happened? Why do you want to arrest me?"
One of the soldiers said, "Don't worry, our king is just and wise. He asked us that when someone comes to this city, we should take him to the king so that if he knows art or has knowledge or knows industry well, tell him to the king. But now, since it is too late, we will take you to prison tonight and tomorrow morning we will take you to the king." The prince did not say anything and went to the prison with them. The soldiers handed over the prince to the jailer and left. When the jailer saw his good behavior, he understood that he was rich and from big and important families. Therefore, instead of throwing him in jail, he invited him to his room. He brought some water, food, and fruit for them to eat together. The two became close very soon. The jailer asked, "Which city did you come from? All the people of your land should be wise and alert like you." The prince answered,
I am from Fars.
"Because we have a prisoner, who also came from Fars, but he is very bad-mannered, rude and a liar, and he annoys others." The prince said,
Where did you get him? What has he done?
The jailer said, "We have arrested him along with a girl and an ebony horse in the green fields around the city." The prince asked,
Where are the horse and the girl now?
The jailer said, "The horse is kept in the king's treasury." They also took the girl to the palace. They say she is crazy because she doesn't talk to anyone. He sits in a corner and looks out the window. Sage also curses himself from morning till night by crying and wailing. Hearing these words, the prince made a plan so that when he was taken to the king tomorrow, he could implement his plan. That night, the prince heard Sage crying in the prison. Sage was crying loudly and saying, "Curse me for oppressing others because of my greed. The fate of someone who has knowledge like me but does not have good morals is the same." The next morning the guards came and took the prince to the king. When the king saw him, he asked,
Tell me quickly, which city did you come from? Why did you come to this city? What arts do you know and what science do you have?
The prince answered,
My name is Humban. I live in the city of Fars. I studied for years. Now I can treat the crazy. I go from this city to that city to treat the crazy and to increase my experience and knowledge.
When the king heard these words, he remembered the girl. He said happily,
How good it is that you have come to our city. We have a patient whom we hope you will make well. This girl is very kind. I don't have any children. Since I saw her, I decided to keep her in the palace forever. I want her to live with me for many years like my daughter and give me peace and happiness with her good behavior.
The prince bowed and said,
Rest assured, I have made all the patients well.
The king told him the story of the girl and promised him that if he could cure the girl, he would give him a great reward. The prince said to himself,
If the ebony horse is still healthy and I can reach it, I can leave this city. But if that horse is not healthy, I have to find another way.
The prince asked,
Where is the horse that was with the girl now? Maybe I can use it to treat that girl's disease.
The king said,
That horse is in the treasury of the palace. Let's go there.
When the prince saw the horse, he went close and touched its body. He realized that the horse is healthy and can fly again. The girl was in the room and did not talk to anyone. When the maid told her that a doctor has come to treat you, the girl refused. But as soon as he recognized the prince's voice from behind the door, he happily said, Tell him to come. The prince went near the girl and said quietly,
Listen carefully to everything I say and do everything I say so that we can get out of here.
The girl agreed. The prince had some water with him. He poured it in a bowl and gave it to the girl and said,
Drink this and act as if you are feeling better.
The girl drank the water. After a while, she went to the room. She washed his hands and face and put on neat clothes. He went to the king and greeted him with a smile. When the king saw that the girl was fine and talking and laughing with others, he was very happy and thanked the prince. The prince said,
Of course, she is not very well yet. when her illness is completely cured. You will see that his behavior will be even better.
The king said to the prince,
Do whatever is necessary to make him healthy and fresh.
This girl doesn't remember some things, continued the prince.
If you take him to the same meadow and next to the same horse, he will feel better.
The king thought a little and said to himself,
This girl drank a little of this doctor's medicine and she got so much better. I have to listen to him and do whatever he says to make him feel better.
The king accepted the prince's words. Then, along with his soldiers, the ebony horse, the girl and the prince, they set off towards the meadow. When they arrived, the prince said,
Now everyone, move away from the girl and the ebony horse so that she can remember things about her past in peace and quiet.
When they left, the prince rode the horse with the girl. The prince touched the horse's body and the horse went up. The king shouted worriedly,
Catch him.
The soldiers quickly went towards them, but the ebony horse had climbed too high and was far away from them. The king said,
We will wait here. Maybe the horse will fall to the ground.
The king and his companions sat there until the night, but there was no news of the horse. They understood that the prince drew this role to take the girl away from there. The ebony horse went and went until it reached Fars. The king was very happy to see the prince and his bride. He ordered to close the city, distribute sweets and syrup among all the people and have a big celebration for the prince and the bride. The prince thanked his father and then went to the ebony horse and broke it, because he knew that someone might ride it and get into trouble. By the order of the king, there was a celebration in the city for a month. The prince had promised the girl's family that he would take good care of their child, so he went to great lengths to find the girl and bring her back safely to the palace. Because he knew that this was the right thing to do.